Where are you right now? Not just your physical location, but in time, in mind. Is it late, perhaps? Are you curled up in bed, the room dim, maybe glowing faintly with the soft blue of a screen? What time is it in your corner of the world? Midnight? 3 a.m.? That strange, quiet hour where the world feels like it's holding its breath, and even the clocks seem shy to tick too loudly? Wherever you are, welcome. You found your way here, somehow. To this quiet little space where we wander out. Loud, and tonight, there's a question that's been softly echoing in the back of my mind. One of those deceptively simple questions that seems to shimmer the longer you look at it. What is sound, really? Not the technical definition, not just vibrations through a medium. I mean, really, what is it? Why does it move us? How can something invisible make us cry? Why does a melody stay in your head for years? Why can one person's voice feel like safety, and another's like thunder? Why does silence sometimes scream louder than noise? Maybe you've never thought about it. Or maybe you've always felt there's something a little strange about the way sound reaches into your life, how it finds you, shapes you, and sometimes haunts you. So tonight, we'll follow that sound. Through science sensation, through atoms and ancient myths, through space and time and back again. We'll pull back the curtain, just a little, not to solve the mystery, but to listen to it. But before we answer that question, before we even try, we need to go back. Way back. To what we think sound is. If someone asked you, in the middle of a quiet walk, what is sound? You might shrug and answer without much. It's just noise, vibrations. You hear it. And you wouldn't be wrong. That's how most of us think of sound, something that travels through the air and reaches our ears. We might say it's waves. A voice, music, maybe even a nuisance, something you can turn up or turn off. It feels simple. Sound is just there, right? The laughter of someone you love, the honking car on a rainy street. The wind brushing against leaves like a sigh, even the whisper of your own breathing counted as sound. You don't need to understand it to live with it, to respond to it. To feel your heart race at a sudden bang, or soften at a lullaby. But here's the strange thing. For something that feels so obvious, sound is built on assumptions. Assumptions we rarely question. We assume that sound exists independently of us, that it's out there, floating in the world, waiting to be heard. That a falling tree makes a sound even if no one is there to listen. But what if it doesn't? What if the falling tree only moves the air, and what we call sound only happens inside us? Sea air doesn't make music. Pressure waves don't carry screams. The vibrations in the air don't know they're a voice, a song, or a siren. We add the meaning. We add the soundness of sound. Your brain turns a pattern of pressure into memory, language, emotion. So, is sound really out there? Or just in here? Here's another oddity. We imagine sound is smooth and continuous, like pouring water. But the world is full of hidden silence. We don't hear everything. In fact, we only hear a sliver, just a narrow band of vibration between 20 and 20,000 hertz. That means most of what's vibrating in the universe is silent to us. Elephants hum beneath our hearing. Bats scream above it. The deepest earthquakes groan at one edge, and high-pitched dog whistles vanish at the other. So what we think of as sound is actually just the slice of vibration we're tuned to. That's like looking through a keyhole and thinking you've seen the whole room. And then there's music. Why does arranging a few vibrations in a certain way make us cry, or dance, or remember something from years ago? Why does your favorite song feel like it knows you? No one taught the atoms to do that. Physics didn't invent heartbreak melodies. So maybe sound isn't just about what it is, but also about what it does. It carries memory. Emotion. Longing. Connection. It's not just heard. It's felt, translated, imagined, remembered. And that brings use here to a soft but serious contradiction. We think sound is physical, but we feel it as emotional. We say it's objective, but it's shaped by culture, memory, and biology. We assume it's external, but it only exists through perception. So what is sound, really? Is it physics? Or is it poetry? Is it vibration? Or is it meaning? We've always thought it was simple, but now, maybe we need to look a little deeper. Maybe we need to listen a little closer. And to do that, we need to remember the first stories science told us, the ones that tried to capture this invisible thing with math and matter. Let's go back to what science used to say. Before we had microphones, oscilloscopes, or sound design software, we had only our ears and our wonder. Long before the word physics ever existed, people noticed that a plucked string could stir something inside. That, when thunder cracked, animals ran. That voices could lead or soothe or command. And we asked, what is it? What travels through the air but cannot be seen? Something invisible that moves the world? So we watched. We guessed. And slowly science began to speak. It started, as many things did, with the Greeks. Pythagoras sat in his quiet temple, listening to hammers strike anvils. He noticed something odd. Some combinations of strikes sounded beautiful. Others did not. He realized that harmony had math in it, that if one string was twice the length of another, their notes would sound pure together. It was the beginning of a long relationship between sound and number. Sound, they believed, was motion made music, a sacred geometry in air. And for centuries, that idea held. That sound was a ripple, like tossing a stone into still water. Only the water was air. Then came the age of reason, and with it Isaac Newton. He saw the world not as a song, but as a machine. He imagined sound as a compression, a series of pulses, like a slinky moving through space. He called them longitudinal waves, tiny. Pushes and pulls through matter. Air was no longer a mystery. It was a medium. A carrier. Sound, Newton said, was the result of mechanical motion. Something hits something. The vibration travels. Eventually, it reaches an EARDR MEB. At the end. It was elegant. Testable. Predictable. For a time, it explained everything. In Newton's world, silence wasn't spiritual. It was just the absence of pressure waves. A vacuum. A gap in the system. And yet, even in that cold, clean framework, we were left with questions, because while Newton's equations could explain the speed of sound, they couldn't explain its color. Why do some frequencies feel warm? Why does a minor chord feel sad? Why does your mother's voice still echo in your dreams? Those things didn't live in the numbers. They lived somewhere else. As the centuries moved forward, we got better tools, better microphones, better graphs. In the 1800s, Ernst Chladni sprinkled sand on a metal plate and dragged a violin bow along its edge. The vibrations formed, patterns geometric and strange. Like snowflakes drawn in motion. It showed us that sound wasn't just a line through time. It had shape. Resonance. Then came Hermann von Helmholtz, who built machines that could isolate tones and explained how our ears interpret overtones, harmonics. And timbre. Science was getting closer. It could now see sound, measure it. Chart it. But the more precise it became, the more detached it felt, because sound was still being treated as external, a phenomenon in the world, not an experience inside you. Even in the 20th century, with all its acoustics labs and signal processing, we kept the same model. A source creates vibrations. Vibrations travel through a medium. Your ear detects them. Your brain decodes them. A neat, 4-step recipe. No room for wonder. No mystery required. And yet, if sound is just physics, Why do babies cry when their name is spoken in a dream? Why do certain tones trigger anxiety? Why do monks chant in caves? There's something beyond the medium, something that science, in its older form, couldn't fully hold, because Newtonian physics painted a world that was mechanical, objective, stable. But as we stepped further into the 20th century, we began to look deeper, smaller, more intimately, and what we found there was not stability, not certainty, but strangeness. Sound was no longer just a wave in air. It became something encoded, decoded, and subjective. A collaboration between vibration, matter, and meaning. And science, slowly, began to realize sound doesn't truly exist until someone hears it, which means something had to change in our understanding. A crack appeared in the classical model, a soft, whispering rift in the old. Explanation. Because as we looked deeper, things got stranger. Your brain has never heard a sound, not once, not a whisper, not a scream, not even your own name. What your brain receives are electrical signals, patterns, pulses, impulses in the dark, no echo, no tone, no melody, just tiny sparks flickering across. Neural pathways, like Morse code from a universe that doesn't speak your language. So if your brain never actually hears, where does sound happen? Somewhere between your ears and your mind, you become a translator, a meaning maker, a magician. You turn that code into thunder, into music, into laughter. You build a world of sound out of silence. Your ears are the doorway, two delicate receivers, constantly sculpting reality. Inside, there are tiny hairs, stereocilia, so sensitively can detect movements smaller than a hydrogen atom. They sway with the air's vibration, converting motion into electricity. But it's not just detection, it's selection, because your brain doesn't let in everything. Think of a crowded room, people talking, music playing, CUPCLINKING. And yet if someone says your name, you hear it immediately. That's called the cocktail party effect. Your brain is tuning the dial constantly, filtering out 99% of everything. You only hear what you're emotionally tuned to, which means sound isn't just physics. It's personal. It's shaped by memory, meaning, and attention. Now, let's get a little weirder. There are sounds that don't exist, and you've probably heard them. Take the phantom. Word illusion. Play a loop of scrambled syllables like Goya or Goya, and your brain will start to hear words that aren't there. Different people hear different things. Some hear, go away. Others hear, good luck. Same audio, different mind. Then there's the McGurk effect. When a sound's meaning changes depending on what your eyes see. If you watch someone say fa while hearing ba, your brain creates a hybrid sound. VA. You're not hearing what's there. You're hearing what your brain believes is happening. Sound isn't just received, it's constructed. And then there's memory. You know the feeling. A song comes on and suddenly you're 14 again. The smell of your old bedroom, the feeling of someone's hoodie you used to borrow, that ache in your chest you thought you'd forgotten. Sound pulls the past into the present. Why? Because the brain doesn't file sound away like a neutral object. It stores it with feeling. Sound gets wrapped in memory, in longing, in love. That's why a lullaby can make you cry. Even if you've never heard it before. It feels like something familiar. Sometimes sound is even imaginary. Have you ever heard a song that wasn't playing? Not in a crazy way, just a tune stuck in your head? That's called auditory imagery. And the brain treats it almost exactly like real sound. Neural. Scans show that imagined music lights up the same auditory centers, which means the brain doesn't always know the difference between what's heard and what's remembered. There are people who hear colors. See music. Feel sounds on their skin. That's called synesthesia, a cross-wiring of the senses. For them, sound is multisensory. Chord might look green. A violin might taste like chocolate dot. Is that a disorder? Or a deeper truth? Maybe we all experience a diluted version. A song that feels blue. A voice that sounds warm. Your brain is always blending the senses telling. Stories with them dot. So what do we do with this? It means sound isn't fixed dot. It's not objective dot. It's not even complete without. A listener dot, it's shaped by your culture dot, your childhood, your nervous system, your trauma, your joy dot too. People can hear the same note and feel two completely different things. Because sound doesn't just travel through air dot, it travels through you dot. And here's one last. Thought something small and strange dot. The inside of your skull is silent, absolutely dot completely dot silent dot no air. No vibration dot only a private, echoless void. And yet, that's where you hear everything. Isn't that magic? So if sound isn't in the air, and it isn't in the brain, where is it? To get closer to that answer, we'll need to zoom in, not into. Thoughts dot not into stories, but into matter itself. Dot atoms, dot particles, dot fields, down there. Where things get smaller than small sound behaves very, very strangely dot so far. We've followed sound through air, through brain, through memory. But what happens when we chase it down to the tiniest places? Smaller than a cell, smaller than a molecule dot smaller than sound itself. What lives down there? Let's find out. Imagine zooming in, past your eardrum, past the vibrating bones, past the fluid in your inner ear, deeper still, into the realm of molecules, where oxygen dances with nitrogen, where sound is no longer a wave you can imagine in the air, but tiny bursts of molecular motion dot. It's not smooth. That's jittery dot frenetic dot here. Sound isn't a ripple in a pond. It's a chaotic handshake between gas particles dot, like billiard balls colliding in slow motion. Except they're also spinning, vibrating, sometimes even disappearing. Now zoom again. We're in the world of atoms now. Here, things don't behave like things anymore. Sound begins to unravel. There's no air to push dot, no surface to bounce from. Instead, we find phonons. Phonons aren't particles in the traditional sense. They're quasi-particles, ripples in a quantum field. They aren't made of anything. They're disturbances, excitations, whispers in the fabric of reality. Imagine sound as a ghost wearing the coat of vibration, not really there, but undeniably felt. And now we're deep into the quantum level, where physics loses its grip. This is the world of uncertainty dot, where a thing can be here and not, moving. And still, where? Cause and effect blur, where measurement itself changes reality. And somehow, even here, sound finds a way to whisper. Scientists have found that even atoms can hear. In 2019, physicists used a stream of phononsto send a vibration toward a single atom, and it responded dot it heard the sound dot not with ears, dot not with consciousness dot, but with interaction dot with presence. The tiniest known whisper, received by the tiniest known listener dot in quantum materials. Sound gets even stranger. There are crystals that trap sound, hold it like a memory, and release it later like a message in a bottle. There are ultra-cold experiments where scientists freeze matter so close to absolute zero-thought vibrations slow to almost nothing. And then they measure the sound of vacuum fluctuations dot sound that comes from nothing dot not silence, but the sound of the vacuum itself trembling. Ah, whisper with no source. A sound with no cause. A vibration of the void dot. And then there's quantum entanglement. Two particles, once linked, can mirror each other across any distance. If one is disturbed, the other feels it dash immediately dot no sound travels between them. Dot no wave, dot no energy crossing the space. And yet a change is heard. Not in air dot, but in relationship. Dot, is that sound? Not in the traditional sense, but maybe sound isn't about pressure and medium at all. Dot, maybe it's about connection, about vibration that implies relationship. Maybe sound is the universe reminding itself it's alive, in every direction, at every scale. And here's the strangest part. When things get this small, they vibrate on their own, not because something hit them, not because they heard anything, just because being is vibrating. Dot, in string theory, even the tiniest particles, the quarks, the electrons, the building blocks of matter may be made of vibrating loops. Sound may be baked into the structure of everything. A universe not of objects, but of tones. Dot, of rhythms. Dot, of music. Dot, so maybe the Big Bang wasn't just an explosion. Maybe it was the first note, the first chord struck across the fabric of time, a single tremble that spread and kept going, through galaxies, through atoms, through you. And here you are, a body made of stardust and space, listening to echoes that may have started before time itself. And yet, if things get stranger as they get smaller, what happens when we zoom out past the atoms, past the skin, past the sky? What happens to sound in the vastness? Because up there in the silence between star sound takes on a new kind of mystery. And that's where we're going next. Up here, above the clouds, there is no air. Dot, no wind. Dot, no breath, just cold. Dot, and silence. We often imagine space as empty, echoing still, a great void where sound cannot travel. And we're right mostly, because sound, as we know it, needs a medium. Dot, air, water, metal, something to carry its pressure. But space is mostly a vacuum. Dot, and so we say there's no sound in space. Dot, but maybe that's not the whole story. Imagine this. A black hole, spinning. Dot, faster than thought, faster than comprehension. Its gravity so dense, not even light can escape. But in 2003, scientists studying a black hole in the Perseus galaxy cluster discovered something strange. Dot, it was vibrating, very slowly. Dot, a wave 42,000 light years wide, pulsing every 10 million years. We couldn't hear it in the usual way, but it had a pitch, a note, a real sound, the deepest ever detected, nearly 1 billion times below human hearing. But it was there, a cosmic B-flat, humming through the gas of the cluster, a note held for eternity. And this is not unique. Universe is full of resonance. Stars quake, galaxies spin with harmonic patterns. The early universe, the moment after the Big Bang, was filled with dense plasma, vibrating like a drum. Those vibrations created ripples, waves of pressure, frozen into the structure of the cosmos. Dot, today, we see them in the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the beginning. Dot, it's not music we can hear, but it has rhythm. Dot, it has structure, like a song waiting to be decoded. Physicists call it the music of the spheres. It's an ancient idea that planets and stars create tones as they move, and the universe is a kind of symphony. Pythagoras believed this. Dot, so did Kepler. Dot, they imagined a celestial harmony, not in literal notes, but in ratios and orbits, in mathematics. That felt musical. Dot, and while the modern world dismissed this for a time, science is slowly coming back to it. Dot, with a new name, a new model, because the universe, it seems, isn't made of objects. Dot, it's made of vibrations. Dot, in quantum physics, everything vibrates. Dot, in relativity, gravity ripples space. Dot, in string theory, particles are not dots but loops, tiny, vibrating strings, and their vibration determines what they are. Dot, an electron, a photon, a quark. Each one is a note. Reality is a chord. And you are a symphony of vibrating atoms, held together by invisible forces, dancing in a rhythm you can't hear, but our. Dot, and even though space is silent to our ears, we found ways to translate its data into sound. Dot, it's called sonification. Telescopes collect light and radiation and scientists turn that into soundscapes. What does a star sound like? Or a nebula? Or the birth of a galaxy? You can listen to the data, and suddenly the universe becomes audible, not as it is, but as we can interpret it. A creative act, a bridge between science and imagination, between silence and sound. So, maybe the cosmos is not mute. Maybe it sings in. A language too slow, too deep, too vast for us. Maybe the universe is always speaking. We're just too small to hear the full sentence. But every once in a while, we catch a piece, a single note. Vibration that makes it all feel connected. And here's the strangest thought. If everything vibrates, does everything sing? Do mountains hum in frequencies too low for us to detect? Do atoms thrum like tuning forks? Do feelings have frequency? Some researchers believe even consciousness could be a wave, a resonant field, syncing with itself, that when we tune in, we're literally aligning with a pattern. Sound, then, is not just what we hear, it's what we are inside of. But now, question bubbles up from the void. A quiet, unsettling whisper. What if none of it's real? What if all these vibrations, these sounds, these symphonies and meanings and songs are just illusions? Constructed, interpreted, invented, not by the universe, but by you. And that's where we go next. What if everything we've said so far, the atoms, the stars, the waves, the songs, was just a trick of the mind? Not a lie, not even wrong, just a shadow play, a simulation, a dream inside a dream. Let's begin gently. You've probably heard the question before. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? You might say yes, of course. It does. Waves move through the air, whether or not an ear is nearby. But what if sound isn't in the world? What if it's a thing your mind creates? A mental translation of pressure, made into experience. No ear, no brain, no sound. Just motion. And silence. Now stretch that idea. What if everything light, color, taste, music isn't out there? What if it's in here, inside you, invented by consciousness? A movie being projected on the walls of your mind. Simulation, not in the digital sense, but in the perceptual one. This brings us to the brain in a vat. A famous thought experiment. Imagine your brain has been removed from your body and placed in a tank of nutrients. It's connected to a supercomputer. The machine sends signals into your brain, exactly as if you were seeing, hearing, living. You wouldn't know. You'd hear the breeze, feel the warmth, even hear this voice right now. But none of it would be real. Just electrical input. So, how do you know you're not in the vat already? Maybe that sounds wild. Or maybe it sounds familiar. Simulation theory. The modern twist suggests that all of reality could be a simulated environment, like a video game too complex to detect. Every sound you hear, rendered on demand. Every emotion, part of the script. But who's running it? A super advanced civilization? A future version of us? Something beyond even that? Or maybe there is no runner. Maybe consciousness itself is doing the rendering. Which brings us to something even older than simulation theory. Idealism. Not the kind where people see the world through rose-colored glasses, but the philosophical kind. Idealism says consciousness isn't in the universe. The universe is in consciousness. Everything you experience, sound, matter, time, is the activity of mind. In this view, the world doesn't cause awareness. Awareness causes the world. You're not a person having thoughts. You're a thought having a person. Dreamy, isn't it? But think about it. When you dream at night, do you hear sound? Of course, a song, a scream, a whisper. But no air is moving. No real ears are involved. The sound exists in a world that doesn't exist. And yet, It feels real dot. So how different is that from now? Some spiritual traditions have said this all along. That reality is Maya and illusion. That what we call life is a kind of waking dream. That the self is the dreamer and the world is the dream. Which means sound is the voice of the dream. The whisper of consciousness to itself. Not fake. Just not separate from you. No, none of this means the world isn't real in some sense. Or that nothing matters dot. It just means reality might be weirder, softer, and more relational than we ever imagined. And that brings us to a different kind of silence. One not of outer space, but of not knowing. Because even if we are dreaming or simulating or imagining, we still don't know. And maybe that's sacred dot. So let's take a breath together, because now we arrive at the edges of awe. Knowledge dot where theories collide, where sound dissolves into mystery. Not something to fear, but something to wonder at. We've come so far dot from falling trees and eardrums, to atoms, black holes, and waking dreams. We've built models, described patterns, named vibrations, even questioned if any of it is real dot. And yet, despite all that, we still don't know what sound really is. Not completely. Not finally dot, not in a way that fits everything neatly in its place dot. And maybe that's okay. Let's begin with a simple paradox. Science says sound is vibration dot pressure moving through air. Wave. But that wave has no pitch, no timbre, no meaning until something interprets it dot. So is sound in the world. Or in the translation, where exactly does it begin? In the object? In the air? In the brain? In the awareness that knows it was heard? We don't know. And what about silence? Is silence the absence of sound? Or is it its own experience? Because in a perfectly soundproof room, most people don't hear nothing. They hear their own blood, their breath, the hum of their nervous system. Some report panicked out others. Peace. Silence isn't an absence. It's a mirror. And what it reflects. Depends on who's listening dot. There are questions we haven't answered. Why does music trigger emotion across cultures? Why do some sounds heal while others harm? How do whales communicate across oceans through layers of sound we barely understand? Can plants hear? Does the earth have a song? We don't know. There are entire fields, bioacoustics, sound therapy, cymatics still unfolding. The physics is mapped dot, but the meaning of sound? Still shimmering in mystery dot. And then there are the contradictions. Quantum mechanics tells us sound can be particle like a phonon. But general relativity treats waves differently, as continuous. These two models, both brilliant, still can't fully reconcile dot. It's like trying to explain a lullaby using only equations. We're missing something. Something simple or something profound. We're still listening. Some say sound was the first act of creation. Dot, not light, not matter, but vibration dot in Hindu cosmology. The universe begins with Om, the sacred sound dot in Christian tradition. In the beginning was the Word. The Maori speak of a cosmic hum. Taoists speak of unstruck sound. Ancient wisdom seems to agree. Existence begins in resonance, and we still don't know why. But here's the thing. Not knowing is not failure. Dot, it's not a flaw in the story. Dot is the story. Dot, mystery is what gives sound its depth. Dimension dot, its pull. Dot, it's why music still moves us. Dot, why the voice of someone Gonigan bring tears. Why lullabies still work. Even when we're grown, we don't need to solve sound to be changed by it. Dot. So, take a breath. Let it out slow. Dot, feel the air move past your throat. You're vibrating dot right now. Your chest, your cells, your nerves. And somewhere in all that motion, you're also still dot silent. Dot, both true dot. So maybe we let the missing pieces stay missing. Maybe. They're not cracks in the story, but doors. places we return to when we want to remember that. Wonder still exists, and if sound is a question that never stops asking itself, then so are we. And with that, let's come back to something small, something close, because even if we don't understand sound completely, we still live with it. Every second, every breath, it shapes us, not just from the stars, but from inside our own bodies. Let's go there next. Sound isn't just something you hear, it's something you are. Right now, even in silence, your body is full of rhythm. Your heart is drumming, your blood is rushing, your breath is rising and falling like waves on a shore. You are a symphony of motion, a quiet concert of flesh and time, and every part of you is listening. Start with your ears. Even before you were born, you were hearing. In the womb. Sound is one of the first senses to develop. The muffled pulse of your mother's heart, the low hum of her voice, the vibrations of the world, softened by water and skin. That's the soundscape you were born into, and part of you still remembers it. That's why deep bass calms babies. Why soft whispers feel like safety. Why lullabies work even when we don't know the words. Sound is your oldest language, but it goes deeper than hearing. Your body doesn't just detect sound, it absorbs it. Every cell in your body has tiny receptors, gateways for mechanical pressure. When sound waves move through you, your tissues literally vibrate. Your bones are conductors. Your muscles resonate. Even your organs respond. Sound isn't just passing by. It's moving through you. And sometimes your body sings back. Your gut has its own rhythm, peristalsis, the wave-like motion that moves digestion along. Your heart has its beat. Your sleep cycles follow a circadian rhythm, rising and falling like the tide. Hormones, body temperature, mood. All following invisible tempos. Even silence is part of your rhythm. Moments of stillness, pauses between thoughts, the inhale before you speak. You are not separate from sound. You are shaped by it. Some scientists believe sound can heal. Low frequency vibrations can loosen muscle tension. Ultrasound can break apart kidney stones. Certain tones are used in neurological therapies to calm anxiety, to reduce pain, to reset sleep cycles. And across time, many cultures knew this intuitively. Call on chants, drums, singing, bowls, mantras, not just rituals, but medicine. Not just performance, but tuning. As if the body remembers how to be whole when it hears the right note. Yet, we rarely stop to listen to the body's own music. The hum behind your thoughts, the way your breath lengthens when you're calm, the way your voice cracks when you're not. Sound reveals your inner world, even when you're not speaking. A sigh, laugh. A sharp inhale, tiny signals, tiny truths. The body talks in vibration. Do we listen? And here's something soft and strange. When you're deeply relaxed, half asleep, half awake, your brain produces theta waves. They oscillate slowly, gently, D-R-E-A-M-I, la, y, and in those moments, the world feels slower. Thoughts feel softer. Time stretches. This is the state just before sleep, just after waking. The in-between, and sound, especially soft, rhythmic sound, can guide you there. Not push you, but invite you. So tonight, maybe you're lying in bed. Still. Heavy. And around you, silence, but not the silence of nothing. The silence of potential. Of being held, of breath and heartbeat and invisible rhythms. And even here, you are surrounded by sound. The low hum of electricity. The creak of the walls. The soft roar of blood in your ears. It's quiet, but not empty. It's full of you. So next time you listen, really listen. Don't look for what's out there. Listen to what's within. The way your breath rustles your chest. The soft click of your tongue against your teeth. The way your own voice vibrates in your skull. That's your private concert, your body's sacred song, no audience, no performance. Just you, alive, and all of this. Brings us to a curious question. If we live in sound, and it lives in us, how did we ever start trying to measure it? To name it, map it, understand it, to track this invisible forces if it could be tamed? For that, we have to go back again, way back, to the long, slow history of how humans tried to make sense of sound. Before we measured sound in decibels, before frequencies and waveforms and noise-canceling headphones, we told stories. We didn't know what sound was, but we knew what it felt like. A lion's roar meant danger. A mother's hum meant safety. The crack of thunder meant the gods were near. And so, we listened, and we made meaning. The earliest humans didn't have language the way we do, but they had rhythm. They clapped, they drummed, they mimicked the sounds of birds and beasts. And eventually, they sang. Not for performance, not for art. To connect, to each other, to the land, to the invisible. Some say music came before words. That vibration was our first vocabulary, in ancient cultures. Sound was more than sensation, It was power, to the Egyptians. Sacred chants helped souls cross into the afterlife, to the Aboriginal Australians. Songlines mapped the land not by roads, but by melody. In India, the syllable Om was believed to be the sound of creation itself, not symbolic, not metaphorical. Literal. The frequency that made the universe begin to vibrate. A sound that still echoes in meditation today. In Greek mythology, sound was divine mathematics. Pythagoras, the philosopher mystic, believed that harmony reflected cosmic order. He saw beauty in intervals, in ratios, the octave, the fifth, the fourth. To him, music wasn't an art. It was proof that the universe made sense. A soundless structure beneath all chaos. As time passed, we began to measure. By the Middle Ages, we built organs, vast machines of breath and pressure. We developed notation. We tuned scales, but we still didn't understand what sound was, only what it did. Then came the Enlightenment. And with it science. In the 17th century, we began to think of sound mechanically. A plucked string caused the air to ripple. The ripple reached an ear. An ear told a brain. That was the model. Newton described sound as a wave, a series of pushes and pulls. Through space. It was elegant. Precise. And sterile. It described the how. Not the why. Even so, we kept refining. In the 1800s. Chladni plates showed us that sound made patterns. In the 1900s. Microphones translated pressure into electricity. In the 2000s, we created digital libraries of every sound imaginable. But the mystery didn't go away, because even as we measured sound with more accuracy, we still didn't understand why a certain chord made us cry, or why silence can feel louder than noise. The human art was always just beyond reach. And now, we're still chasing it. There are new discoveries in neuroscience, studying how music shapes memory, how vibration affects cellular healing, how the brain's rhythm dances with external sound. There are spiritual movements, returning to ancient sound baths. Technological dreams of artificial voices with perfect pitch. And under all of it, still the same question. What is sound really? It's a long story. Thousands of years long. From myth to math. From chant to code. From heartbeat to waveform. And all of it led us here. To this quiet moment, where you're lying in bed, listening to the soft hush of a voice asking you questions that don't quite have answers. Because after all this time, what if sound doesn't exist? What if, after all the math, all the science, all the listening, sound isn't real? Not in the way we assume. Not a thing, but a moment. A ripple. In experience. passing agreement between pressure and perception, and then it's gone. It begins with a shift in perspective. In physics, there are phenomena that don't exist on their own. A wave isn't a substance. It's a pattern in something else. A ripple in water, a shiver in air, a vibration in a field. Without the medium, there is no wave. So if sound is a wave, and waves are only patterns, then sound is not a thing. It's a relationship. An interaction. A meeting. It only exists between. And then there's this. You never hear the sound itself. You hear the result of your brain's interpretation. Pressure enters the ear. The signal is translated. Memory and meaning are applied. And what you think is sound is actually a construct. Built. Layered. Filled in. Just like your visual world, where your brain edits out the blind spot in your eye, guesses at shadows, colors, and gaps. Sound is hallucinated with consent. Some researchers now suggest that sound is emergent, not fundamental. Not basic, but something that arises from simpler processes, like heat emerging from particle motion, or wetness arising from the osmosis. Combination of molecules. No single molecule is wet, just light. No single particle is sound. It only exists when certain conditions are met. And when those conditions fade, so does the sound. There's also the relational view. In this model, nothing exists by itself, only in context, only in connection. Sound isn't out there. It's how one thing affects another. No source. No listener. No meaning. Just change. Just dance. You can't bottle it. You can't touch it. You can't point to it without participating in it. Sound, then, is more like a mirage. Visible. But only if you're standing at just the right angle. And even neurologically, sound isn't stable. Play a tone once, and your brain reacts. Play it again, and the neurons fire slightly differently. Your mood changes it. Your history colors it. Even your expectation reshapes it. The same note can be calming or terrifying, depending on what you believe it means. Sound isn't a fact. It's a feeling. A suggestion. A translation. A ghost story we keep telling ourselves in rhythm. So maybe it's not real. Not in the solid, independent way we think of reality. But maybe. That doesn't matter. Because some of the most important things we experience aren't real in the way we define. Reality. Love. Time. Home. Self. That don't sit in the periodic table. We're not made of atoms, but we live in them. And sound is one of those. It's not a substance. Not a structure. It's a spell we cast with vibration that dissolves the moment we stop believing in it. And yet, even if it's not real in the strictest sense, it still moves us. Shapes us. Heals us. Haunts us. It still lives in us. And maybe that's real enough. So here we are. After all this time, all this wondering. At the edge of the audible, where sound becomes silence, and silence becomes breath, and breath becomes you. Still awake. Still dreaming. And with that, let's end where we began. Not with an answer, but with a whisper. Final pause. You made it. All the way through. From falling trees and atoms to galaxies and illusions. From ancient myths to the quiet hum inside your chest. And now, here you are. Still. Listening. Breathing. Where are you tonight? Is it past midnight? Is your room dark and quiet, except for the soft buzz of whatever brought you here? Are your eyes heavy now? Is your body warmer than it was an hour ago? Do you feel the sound inside you, even now that it's gone? We've talked about so much. About waves and years and memory. About dreams and matter and the shape of silence. In the end, sound was never really about air pressure. Or physics. It was about you. The way a song makes you cry. The way a voice can feel like home. The way silence can speak volumes. Sound is not separate from you. It's not something you witness. It's something you are. Maybe you're drifting now. Maybe your thoughts are soft. Maybe you're holding on to one question, or letting them all go. Either way, you don't have to understand any of it. The mystery isn't waiting to be solved. Waiting to be held. So take a breath. Feel the way the air moves in your body, the small rise and fall of your chest. That's sound. That's you, vibrating quietly into the dark. And when you finally fall asleep tonight, when your brain slips beneath the surface, when your thoughts lose their edges, when the world gets quiet, the sound won't stop. It will become something else. A dream, a memory, a pulse. And you'll still be there. Part of the song. So whatever this thing called reality is, whatever sound really means, right now, in this moment, it's you, breathing, softly. Still awake. Still dreaming. Thank you for listening with your whole self. Come back anytime. The quiet will be waiting.